382 horsepower can make a mediocre driver look tidier than he is. It can hide braking too early, carrying less corner speed than the chassis would allow, and picking up the throttle late enough that the engine has to rescue the exit. Toyota says this final edition gets revised differential control, larger brakes, more chassis rigidity, aero work, and retuned suspension. But on a road like this, those parts stop supporting the brochure and start taking responsibility. And the question is whether this GR Supra finally tells the truth. It's a B58, so of course 382 horsepower is delivered drama-free. 1800 RPM brings the torque in, 5000 RPM keeps all of that power available, and generally this motor spends its entire life making you look better than you actually are. The wide plateau of torque makes up for lazy shifts and lazy throttle work. It turns corner exits from, oh, that was messy, to, oh yeah, I meant to do that. Most of the time, this B58 is the better driver in the car. Yes, the engine has a Toyota badge and a little Toyota calibration, but its personality has survived the badge swap. It's powerful, it's torquey, it's competent, and it's technically excellent the way an expensive tool is technically excellent. The active exhaust adds some audible drama above 4,000 RPM, but if you're standing outside this GR Supra when it arrives, the matte paint and the GR graphics are doing more work than the exhaust. The exhaust is so tame that you can roll into a friend's driveway and not be heard. The engine does the job in the gear you choose and at the pace you asked for, but it doesn't sing and it doesn't announce itself either. This 6-speed is the best part of the powertrain and possibly the best part of the car. Shift gates are well defined and they're so good that you don't miss them under pressure. The clutch is crisp, it's firm, easy to modulate at lower speeds. Rev matching is on by default. It's defeatable in the individual mode for those of us who find rev matching insulting. However, it's not insulting, it's consistently flattering in a way a human can never be. It perfectly blips that throttle to the right engine speed that the next lower gear demands. The shifter and this gearbox are so good, it actually might even be too good for the B58. For this final edition, that rear differential got different calibration, which is Toyota's way of saying the electronics got smarter without telling us exactly how. On the road, you don't really feel it working per se. What you do feel is the absence of behavior it would have otherwise permitted. No power slipping away on corner exit, no rear axles stepping out under trail braking, and no compromise to make the car safer for the driver who hasn't earned it. A mechanical limited slip diff might tell you a little bit more. This diff lets you stop worrying about it altogether. Peak torque at 1800 RPM sounds amazing until you realize you can drive it lazy and never know the difference. 0 to 60, apparently 4.2, but it's 3.9 in the automatic. That, my friends, is the price you pay for engagement. Subscribers get notified when new episodes drop on this channel. Everyone else leaves it to the algorithm. If you want to know when new episodes arrive on YouTube, well, that's what the subscribe button does. Other GR Supras are quick and accurate, but they always felt like the front tires were reporting through legal counsel. This optimized rack is happy at 12 o'clock and it self-centers naturally. Load it through a corner and you can actually feel some mechanical resistance building up. It feels synthetic, every EPS is, but at least it's being honest about being synthetic. Road feel comes from the chassis underneath, and I think Toyota tuned this steering to help get you there. The front brake rotors have grown by an inch, from 13.7 inches to 14.7 inches, and bigger rotors give you more thermal capacity. On a single hit, they don't help you stop any quicker, but they do buy a little precision. The pedal's progressive, feel, control, modulation, all top-notch. I certainly do appreciate that extra thermal capacity, especially if I were taking this on the racetrack, but it's not quite as precise as what you find in an MX-5 with the Brembo option. And keep in mind, on the road, the limiting factor is the tire, not the rotor, and the tire didn't change. On the track, the extra thermal capacity means the difference between making it through through all of your sessions on a track day and sitting one out. On a road like this, you have more than you need, better than the other way around. The chassis updates to this final edition is a list of things that good dynamics engineers often fight for but rarely get. Uprated front anti-roll bar, firmer control arm bushings, a stiffer underbody brace, revised camber settings front and rear, and they retuned the adaptive dampers. Reinforced rear subframe mounts are the upgrade that no one asked for, which is exactly why they're one of the most serious upgrades in this car. None of that's decoration. And on this road, you can place this car precisely. What it doesn't do is tell you more that added stiffness results in more precision, not more communication. The ride was never going to be plush. I mean, we're talking about tires with 35 profile sidewalls after all. Still, small and medium-sized bumps are absorbed without protest. Larger bumps make the suspension work, but it still stays planted to the road. And after many miles of playing on this road, I can say the chassis is busy, but it's still definitely livable. Let's talk about the aero bits of this final edition, and all of these things do work, just not at legal road speeds. If you'd like to support the channel beyond just watching, the merch store link is here. Your support there means more time for us to produce episodes like this, a little less time worrying about industry access. No pressure, just an option. Seating position in this generation GR Supra has always been correct. You sit nice and low in the chassis, the pedal box is well spaced, the relationship between the seat, the steering wheel, and the pedals is just wonderful. Lots of adjustment here, and almost anyone can find a comfortable seating position. What's unusual, and maybe because it's BMW adjacent, is that the steering wheel rim thickness is a little on the narrow side, and something like this BMW would fit a steering wheel that has a thick rim on it to make it feel all sporty, but Toyota's aesthetic goes in a slightly different direction, and I can't disagree. It feels purposeful, it encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3, and otherwise doesn't get in the way. For a proper sports car like this, these seats are a wonderful blend of support and comfort, just enough bolstering to give you all the support you need when the corners get interesting, and over long drives and lots of seat time, you're not fatigued by the time you switch off the ignition. This final edition adds this Alcantara upholstery and I think the GR embroidery, but I do appreciate the Alcantara because it does hold you in place a little bit better than leather upholstery would. Forward visibility is excellent. Rearward visibility is only compromised if you're the shoulder checking kind, and on this channel we know if you adjust your mirrors properly, blind spots aren't real. The modest touchscreen and this controller is BMW iDrive stuff with Toyota branding. Still, that's a win whether it was an intentional decision on Toyota's part or not, because the climate controls are still buttons and dials in 2026. I think because this is older hardware, wireless Apple CarPlay works flawlessly. This is not a bleeding edge cabin in 2026. It's actually better than that. It's a cabin that does its best to leave you alone. This older BMW derived layout is not glamorous in the least, but it is a small price to pay to be able to use all of these controls while you're on the move. This final edition's color theme seems to be red. Inside we have red seat belts and red stitching. On the outside, we have red mirror caps and some red graphics. The flat paint on the outside is an acquired taste. It works in the shade, but in direct sunlight, that doesn't work in camera. And maybe all of this red trim will age into the character of this car, depending on how sentimental the first and second owners are. Cargo capacity is impressive, and side note, I'm on a long trip, came with a full-size suitcase, and it actually fit underneath the hatch. I didn't know if that was going to work out, but I'm glad it did, and in fact, I was able to fit a full-size suitcase, a carry-on size suitcase, and a full backpack underneath the hatch. Well done, Toyota. One odd characteristic that affects all GR Supras, and I was reminded of this at the first attempt, there is a trunk release switch here on the lower driver's door. Hit the button, The hatch releases, get out of the car, close the door, and due to that change in air pressure, that rear hatch pops up, pops down, and relatches. And then you're left twiddling your thumbs trying to find another way to open that hatch. The only plausible options are to leave the door open or to use the hatch release on the fob. And in 2026, no car should need a trick to open its own trunk. Plus, anyone dailying a GR Supra and telling you it's fine is also admitting they never put anything in the trunk. If this episode gave you more than a brochure or a press release, hit the like button. It tells YouTube to share this episode with more people like you interested in an episode like this. Takes just a second. Every YouTuber has the same problem. The better the driving footage, the dirtier the car. This episode is sponsored by GoClean, which is how I cheat that math. 2 days of shooting put a layer of California road film over Toyota's goodbye to this GR Supra. California doesn't respect special editions. The cars on this channel aren't mine, and I have to give them back in the same shape I picked them up. Every panel, every wheel. So I'm picky about what touches the paint. This is one of the few things I keep in my kit permanently. GoClean Waterless Car Wash gets it back to video clean without needing a hose. Visit goclean.ca, use code MAX15 for 15% off. Now, on to ownership, where the Supra gets a little more complicated. The reason it's complicated is because this has never been just a Toyota. It's never been just a BMW either, and its reputation suggests that it's honestly a bit of both. Toyota's written the final edition goodbye for a car co-engineered with BMW and built by Magna in Austria. You could say that the sentimentality is subcontracted. Now, a week with this has been a blast, but owners, they get the sequel. Cold starts, parts counters, clutch quirks, highway miles, and the small noises that begin after the honeymoon leaves the parking lot. Forums are messy, but messy does not mean useless. It means that you have to separate facts from typing posture. First, wind buffeting, because every one of these since 2020 had a bit of a problem if you enjoyed driving with the windows down. Owners concur, and every single one of these I drove generated a violent helicopter blade resonance with the windows down above 40 miles an hour. An entire aftermarket category exists to sell $100 plastic deflectors fixing what Toyota didn't. This final edition's factory deflectors solve it. Zero buffeting at highway speed, windows fully down, confirmed by yours truly every day I drove this. What we have here is 6 years of pretending the problem didn't exist, then quietly fixing it on the model's last lap. The unintended consequence, windows down, is now actually viable, which means the muted exhaust outside the car is the next thing you notice. Second, the manual's worst quirk has nothing to do with the gearbox. It's a hydraulic restrictor in the clutch line called the CDV, a BMW carryover designed to protect the drivetrain from shock loads. According to some owners, it makes the 1-2 shift feel rubbery and hangs the RPM at the worst moment. For what it's worth, this tester didn't show it. For me, the 1-2 shift was perfect every single time, which suggests some Supra to Supra variability, or that the final edition's QA caught what earlier cars didn't. Either way, owners reporting rubbery shifts aren't imagining it, and the delete remains the highest impact-free mod on the car. A wood screw, 20 minutes, a clutch bleed. Third, the factory alignment from Gratz is widely reported to be wrong. Owners say rear toe near zero, asymmetric camber side to side, and at highway speeds it tracks twitchy. Their words. Same rule as the MX-5. Get the alignment checked before you form opinions about the chassis. A fresh alignment isn't a mod, it's a necessity. Fourth, the engine sound in the cabin is partly fake. The active sound design module synthesizes engine and exhaust frequencies and broadcasts them through the audio speakers. In sport mode, the subwoofers stop reproducing bass and start producing turbo noise, which also means the JBL system gets worse the harder you drive. Owners disable it in 15 minutes with no error codes. The B58 is one of the great modern inline sixes, and it appears Toyota didn't trust it to sell itself inside the cabin, and they didn't ask the exhaust to sell it on the outside. Bottom line from owners, the platform's solid and the BMW underpinnings are durable. The friction points are limited to software, supply chain, and the dealer experience. If you own one of these or have some quality seat time in one of these, let me know in the comments what I got right and what I got wrong, because real-world owner experiences are much more valuable than anything I can learn in a week-long press loan, and I always read those comments. The final edition's hardware list is legit, and if Toyota had asked me, it's exactly what I would have done. Larger front brakes, uprated anti-roll bar, firmer control arm bushings, reinforced subframe mounts, a stiffer underbody brace, revised camber, retuned dampers, the extra aero, but it's the added chassis rigidity that you feel first and most. Everything else comes off as refinement on top of a chassis that was already capable. The aero does its job above legal speed limits and contributes very little below those. Add it all up, and this is the finest GR Supra ever made, and I think it's because somebody in the program treated this goodbye as the chance to finish the job. The chassis upgrades to this final edition gives this a platform that can handle more than the engine delivers, and that sentence is the entire verdict. The B58 is competent, makes this car quick, and it forgives just about every driving misdeed. The chassis underneath is now precise enough to be embarrassed by the B58's good manners. And the brakes now have more thermal capacity than the road could ever ask for. And the diff now does its job so perfectly that you never even think about it. And the suspension soaks up bumps that would unsettle any regular GR Supra. And the 6-speed shifter may be the best part of the car and possibly too good for the rest of it. Still, none of that makes this Supra dramatic. It makes this competent in a way no GR Supra before it ever was. At this price point, you're not paying for more legend, you're paying for the most finished version of this generation Supra. Whatever you bring to this car, the Supra will reveal exactly the kind of driver you are. Sure, the cynics have said that this appears to be a half-hearted victory lap, but to me, it reads like a list of things I wish they'd done sooner. The best version of this Supra arrived at the end, which is either good timing or an admission with a window sticker. Mediocre drivers will still feel fast, but now they'll be found out too. The chassis updates just give this a new level of poise. Brake early, turn in too late, pick up the throttle lazy, and this car knows. Drive it properly, and the chassis stops covering for you and starts asking the engine for more to give. The right driver bought it for that. That's the final edition GR Supra. Subscribe if you want to see more of these. Don't if you don't. Comments are open if you disagree. And the merch store link is here if you want to help fund more of these. See you on the next one.